They say a catamaran is the perfect boat for a couple. 2 hulls, 2 engines, 2 helms, 2 people. But what if there's only one of you? What if your partner is sleeping or seasick, or you're crossing alone because that's how you want to do it? Solo sailing a catamaran is not the same problem as solo sailing a monohull. On a monohull, the boat is smaller, the loads are lower, and the cockpit is one compact workspace. On a catamaran, you have width. You have 2 bows you can't see simultaneously. You have docking loads that arrive from angles a monohull skipper never thinks about. And you have a sail plan that generates forces most single-handers are not physically prepared for. So this list is not about which catamarans are nice. It's about which catamarans are engineered to be operated by one person without requiring a second pair of hands, a second pair of eyes, or a prayer. We're measuring helm visibility, line management centralization, self-tending sail systems, docking ergonomics, and the physical distance between the steering position and every critical control. These are the top 7 catamarans one person can handle alone. Number 1. Balance 442. The Balance 442 is not just solo capable. It is explicitly engineered to be piloted single-handedly and safely in any weather condition. That's not a marketing line, that's a design brief. And the answer to that brief is a trademarked system called the VersaHelm. The VersaHelm is a steering wheel that swings. It moves between a protected cockpit position, sheltered under the hardtop, and an elevated outboard position that gives clear sight lines over both bows, both quarters, and the entire foredeck. Why does this matter for solo sailing? Because the number one problem when you're alone on a catamaran is not strength, it's vision. You can't see the leeward bow from a fixed helm on the windward side. You can't see the dock cleat on the port quarter when you're steering from starboard. The VersaHelm eliminates that blind spot by letting you physically move the helm to wherever the sight line needs to be. No other catamaran in this size range offers that. Then the sail handling. The Balance 442 uses a self-tending blade jib. That means tacking is reduced to turning the wheel. The jib crosses its track without manual intervention. You don't need to release the sheet, cross the cockpit, grind the winch, and trim. You turn the wheel and the sail follows. For a solo sailor in building seas, that reduction from a 4-step process to a 1-step process is not convenience. It's the difference between a clean tack and a missed tack that puts you beam on to a wave. All reefing and sail management tasks take place at the upper helm station. That means the solo skipper never has to leave the helm to reduce sail, never has to go forward, never has to clip on, crawl along a wet deck, fight with a halyard at the mast, and crawl back. Every critical control is within arm's reach of the person driving the boat. The main sheet system operates without a traveler. That's a deliberate simplification. A traveler adds control, yes, but it also adds a line, a car, a track, and a decision. For a solo sailor managing a 1,200 square foot sail plan in changing conditions, removing that decision is a net gain. And speaking of that sail plan, 1,205 square feet is big enough to ghost along in 5 knots of true wind. That matters for solo sailors because light air sailing is quiet sailing. No engine noise covering the sound of approaching traffic, no vibration masking the feel of a wind shift, and no fuel management eating into your mental bandwidth when you're already running every system on the boat by yourself. The Balance 442 is a 44-foot performance catamaran that a single person can tack, reef, and dock without ever leaving the helm. That is the standard. Everything else on this list is measured against it. Number 2. Seawind 1170. The Seawind 1170 does something that most catamaran builders refuse to do. It stays small. At 39 feet, it bucks the industry trend of ever larger boats. And for solo sailing, that decision to stay compact is not a compromise. It's the single most important design choice on the entire boat. Because width kills solo sailors. A 50-foot catamaran has a beam of roughly 25 feet. That means the port bow is 25 feet from the starboard bow. When you're docking alone, that's 25 feet of boat that you can't be at both ends of simultaneously.
The Seawind 1170 at 39 feet reduces that beam. It reduces the distances. It reduces the time it takes to move from the helm to the cleat, from the cleat to the fender, from the fender back to the throttle. And when you're alone in a crosswind approaching a fuel dock with an audience, time is everything. The helm stations are twin protected positions at cockpit level, not up on a flybridge where you can see far but can't reach anything. Down at deck level where your hand can grab a dock line, push off a piling, or reach the throttle in the same motion. These helms offer 360-degree visibility. You can see all four corners of the boat from either helm position: forward, aft, port, starboard. No blind spots, no guessing where your bow is relative to the boat next to you. For a solo sailor, that visibility is not a feature, it's a survival system. Then there's what Seawind calls the magic door, a trifold door system that connects the saloon and the cockpit into a single flat level. No companionway steps, no raised threshold, no tripping hazard when you're moving fast from the navigation station to the helm at 2 in the morning because the AIS alarm just went off. The solo skipper can move between the chart table and the wheel in a straight line, on a flat surface, without changing elevation. That seamless flow matters because every second of transition between the inside world and the outside world is a second when nobody is watching the horizon. The 1170 also carries a self-tacking jib. Combined with the cockpit integrated sail controls, the skipper can manage 95-degree tacks hands-free. Turn the wheel, the boat tacks, the jib crosses. You never leave your seat. And at 11 tons of displacement, the motion is comfortable in a seaway without feeling sluggish or unresponsive. The Seawind 1170 is a Category A offshore cruiser that a single person can sail, dock, and anchor without requiring any physical movement that takes them more than 3 steps from the helm. That's the geometry of solo sailing solved at 39 feet.
Number 3. Nautitech 44 Open. The Nautitech 44 Open is a different kind of solo catamaran. It's not designed around simplification, it's designed around feel. This is a boat for the solo sailor who was also a sailor, someone who wants feedback from the hull, load from the sheet, and the physical experience of trimming a boat that responds to input. The twin steering positions are mounted far aft and recessed. That placement does 2 things. First, it puts the rudders almost directly beneath the skipper's feet. The connection between wheel input and boat response is immediate. There's no delay, no slop, no dead zone. When you turn the wheel, the boat turns now. For a solo sailor threading a crowded anchorage under sail, that immediacy is safety. Second, the aft position gives the solo skipper a natural view of the sail plan from beneath. You can see the leach of the main, the curve of the jib, and the angle of the apparent wind indicator without turning your head away from the course. That matters, because a solo sailor doesn't have someone on the rail calling trim. They have to see everything from one position, and the Nautitech 44 Open puts everything in the sight picture. The centralized winch layout is where this boat earns its solo credential. All halyards, sheets, and trim lines are routed over the roof and along the side decks directly to the helm stations. Nothing terminates at the mast. Nothing requires a trip to the cabin top. Every line that controls a sail ends within reach of the person driving the boat. That routing philosophy means a solo sailor can adjust the main halyard tension, trim the genoa, and ease the traveler without ever unclipping their tether. The main sheet and traveler sit on the aft beam at a natural working height. Electric winches handle the high loads, and the ergonomic main track allows for comfortable adjustment without the awkward overhead reaching that plagues boats with boom-mounted main sheets. The Nautitech 44 Open also benefits from a low center of gravity. The Smart Room configuration optimizes heavy gear storage low in the hulls, which keeps the boat stable and predictable when a solo sailor is busy with something other than steering. Because on a solo passage, you will be busy with something other than steering. You'll be cooking, you'll be navigating, you'll be sleeping, and when you come back to the helm, you need a boat that hasn't developed a mind of its own while you were gone. The Nautitech 44 Open is for the solo sailor who doesn't want the boat simplified. They want it organized. Number 4. XS-14. The XS-14 is the smallest boat on this list, and for solo sailing, that's the point. XS designed this boat around what they call sensation, direct feedback,
responsive handling, the feeling that the boat is an extension of the skipper rather than a platform the skipper is riding on. The hull design is asymmetrical. That's a performance choice borrowed from racing multihulls. It means the boat generates less drag when heeled slightly, which translates to more speed from less sail area. And for a solo sailor, less sail area means less to manage, less to reef, and less that can go wrong at 3 in the morning. The boom sits low and sporty. That matters for solo docking more than anything else on the spec sheet, because the helm positions are aft and low, not up on a flybridge, not elevated behind a hardtop, down where you can reach a dock line, grab a cleat, and step off the boat. On a flybridge catamaran, docking alone means running the engines from 12 feet above the water, then sprinting down the stairs to grab lines before the wind pushes you off the dock. The XS-14 eliminates that sprint. You steer, you step, you tie. One person, one fluid motion. The steering system uses Dyneema, high-modulus synthetic lines instead of hydraulic rams. That's not a cost-saving measure. It's a tactile choice. Dyneema steering gives the solo skipper direct, unfiltered feedback from the rudders through the wheel. You can feel the boat loading up. You can feel it accelerating. You can feel the moment when the sails are overpowered and it's time to reef before the instruments tell you. Hydraulic steering filters all of that out. It's smooth and easy, yes, but it removes information. And when you're sailing alone, information is life. The saloon windows are untinted, 360-degree visibility, day and night. That's an exclusive feature designed specifically to aid solo skippers in night navigation and heavy traffic. Tinted windows look good in the marina, but at midnight in a shipping lane, when you're trying to determine if that light on the horizon is getting closer or farther, tinted glass is an enemy. Clear glass is a tool. And the PulseLine performance package pushes the SA to D ratio to 26.5. That's extreme. That means this boat converts light gusts into boat speed almost instantly. For a solo sailor, that responsiveness is a critical safety feature because it means you can outrun weather that a heavier, slower catamaran would have to sit and absorb. The XS-14 is the solo catamaran for the skipper who wants to feel every wave, every gust, and every degree of heel. It's not for everyone. But for the right solo sailor, nothing else comes close. Number 5. Leopard 42. The Leopard 42 exists to remove uncertainty. And for a solo sailor, uncertainty is the enemy. Not the wind, not the waves. Uncertainty. Will I be able to dock this thing alone? Will I be able to reef before it gets ugly? Will I be able to see the fishing boat I can hear but can't find? The Leopard 42 answers all three with the same design philosophy. Put the skipper in a commanding position and bring every control to them. The helm is a single elevated station on the starboard side. It provides commanding views of all 4 hull quarters and the coach roof lounge simultaneously. That one-station approach is counterintuitive for a catamaran. Most builders give you 2 helms, one on each side, because you need visibility on both sides for docking. The Leopard says no. 1 helm, elevated enough to see everything. 1 position to learn, 1 set of muscle memories, 1 place where all the instruments, all the controls, and all the sight lines converge. For a first-time solo catamaran sailor, that simplicity is transformative. You don't have to decide which helm to use. You don't have to remember which side the throttle configuration is on. You go to your station and everything is there. The sail controls run to a centralized console at the helm, a winch piano with oversized jammers and powerful Lumar winches. The sail plan is 1,217 square feet. That's substantial. But the winch sizing and the jammer layout are designed so that the loads can be managed by 1 person without excessive grinding. Electric winch options further reduce the physical demand. And there's a feature that most people overlook. The forward-facing navigation station can be used as an internal helm station in bad weather. Through a skylight, it provides a complete overview of the rig. Through the saloon windows, it provides visibility forward, port, and starboard. In a genuine storm, when you've reduced to storm jib and the cockpit is a washing machine, the ability to monitor everything from inside, dry and warm and thinking clearly, is not a luxury. It's how solo sailors survive. Because the boat that kills you is not always the big, dramatic knockdown. Sometimes it's the slow accumulation of cold, wet, tired, and confused that leads to a decision you wouldn't make at the dock. The Leopard 42 is built for the solo sailor who wants confidence from day one. Not the fastest, not the most sophisticated, but the most comprehensible. And comprehension, when you're alone and it's dark, is everything.
Number 6. Lagoon 40. The Lagoon 40 is the entry-level catamaran for the world's largest catamaran builder, and that sentence usually means compromises. But for solo sailing, the Lagoon 40's simplicity is not a compromise, it's a philosophy. The rig is built around an aft-stepped mast. Moving the mast further aft does three things that matter for solo sailing. First, it shortens the boom. A shorter boom means the mainsail is easier to control, easier to reef, and less likely to generate the violent, uncontrolled jibes that can injure a solo sailor. Second, it allows for a larger, self-tacking jib. A larger jib that tacks itself means more of the boat's drive comes from a sail that requires zero manual intervention during maneuvers. You tack, the jib follows. You don't touch a sheet. Third, the aft mast position moves the center of effort aft, which improves directional stability. A boat that tracks straight is a boat that forgives you for not steering for 30 seconds while you're adjusting something else. And on a solo passage, those 30-second windows are constant. The helm station has double access. You can reach it from the cockpit in the normal way, and you can reach it directly from the side deck. That dual access means the solo skipper can go forward to the mast or the anchor, do the work, and return to the helm via the shortest possible path. On a boat where the helm is only accessible from the cockpit, going forward means walking the side deck to the bow, doing the work, walking the side deck back to the cockpit, and then stepping up to the helm. On the Lagoon 40, you can shortcut that loop, and shortcuts, when you're the only person on a boat in a building sea, are not laziness, they're risk reduction. At just under 39 feet, the Lagoon 40 is compact. Twin 45-horsepower engines give it the maneuverability to dock in tight spaces without needing someone on the bow with a line. The throttle response is immediate. The turning radius with differential thrust is tight enough to spin the boat in its own length. For the solo sailor who is honest about their experience level, the Lagoon 40 is the catamaran that will not punish you for learning. It will not overwhelm you with systems. It will not demand athletic deck work. It will not make you feel like you need crew. It will make you feel like you need to go sailing. And for a solo sailor, that confidence is the most important spec on the sheet.
Number 7. Outremer 45. The Outremer 45 is the elite performer on this list, and putting it last is deliberate, because the Outremer 45 is not the easiest catamaran to solo sail. It's the most rewarding, and that distinction matters. The boats earlier on this list solve the solo problem through simplification, self-tacking jibs, centralized controls, compact dimensions. The Outremer solves it through performance. The philosophy is this: if the boat is fast enough to sail in 5 knots of true wind, then the solo skipper can sail 95% of the time. That means 95% of the time, no engine. No engine noise masking the sound of weather changes. No engine vibration masking the feel of a wave pattern shift. No engine fuel calculation eating into mental bandwidth. And no engine maintenance schedule adding tasks to an already overloaded solo workload. The Outremer 45 can match wind speed up to 12 knots. That is extraordinary. It means in the typical trade wind belt, where most circumnavigations happen, the Outremer is sailing when heavier cats are motoring. And sailing for a solo sailor is safer than motoring, because under sail, the boat is balanced. It's heeled slightly. It's loaded predictably. The autopilot has consistent force to work against. Under motor in light air, the boat is flat, rolling, slatting, and the autopilot is hunting. The dagger boards are more technical than the mini keels or fixed keels on the other boats. They require active management, raising and lowering depending on the point of sail, adjusting to balance helm pressure. But for a solo sailor who understands them, they provide superior upwind pointing ability. And upwind pointing when you're alone is a safety feature, because clawing away from a lee shore is the moment when pointing ability becomes the distance between a close call and a catastrophe. The minimized displacement keeps the Outremer 45 responsive. It accelerates quickly. It decelerates quickly. It changes direction without the lumbering reluctance of a heavier cruising cat. That responsiveness simplifies anchoring for a solo skipper. You can approach slowly, assess the bottom, back down to set the hook, and power out if it drags, all with the confidence that the boat will do what you ask when you ask it. Heavy boats coast. They carry momentum into situations. They arrive at the dock faster than you planned. They overshoot the anchor spot. They take an extra boat length to stop. Light boats forgive. And a solo sailor needs a boat that forgives, because there's nobody else aboard to compensate for the mistake. The Outremer 45 is not the first catamaran a solo sailor should buy.
It's the catamaran they graduate to when they've learned the fundamentals on something simpler and want a boat that rewards skill with speed, efficiency, and the purest sailing experience available on two hulls. Now, before you argue in the comments about what should or shouldn't be on this list, here's the framework that explains why these 7 boats made it and why most catamarans didn't. First, the visibility problem. Solo sailing on a catamaran is fundamentally a visibility problem. The boat is wide, the saloon is in the middle, the mast is in the way. Every catamaran has blind spots. The boats on this list minimize them. The Balance 442 solves it by moving the helm. The Seawind 1170 solves it by keeping the helm low and the windows clear. The Leopard 42 solves it by elevating a single station. The XS 14 solves it by keeping windows untinted. Every solution is different, but they all start from the same assumption. If the solo skipper can't see it, they can't avoid it. And what they can't avoid will eventually hit them. Second, the line management hierarchy. There are 3 levels of solo capability in sail control. Level 1, all lines terminate at the mast. The skipper must leave the helm, walk forward, do the work, and return. That is not solo capable. That is solo possible. And solo possible is a polite way of saying dangerous. Level 2, all lines route to the cockpit, but not to the helm. The skipper must leave the wheel, step to the winches, do the work, and step back. Better, but the boat is uncontrolled during the transition. Level 3, all lines terminate within arm's reach of the steering position. The skipper never leaves the helm. The boat is always under control. The boats on this list are Level 2 or Level 3. Level 1 catamarans, regardless of how well they sail, are not on this list, because solo sailing is not about what you can do when everything is fine. It's about what you can reach when everything goes wrong. Third, the docking reality. This is where most solo catamaran dreams die, not offshore, not in storms, in the marina. Because docking a catamaran alone in a crosswind is the single most stressful operation in recreational sailing. You have 2 engines, you have 2 hulls catching wind like a billboard, you have dock lines that need to go on simultaneously at 2 points that are 20 feet apart, and you have an audience of experienced sailors judging every bump. The boats on this list address this in different ways. The XS 14 and the Seawind 1170 keep the helms low enough to reach dock lines from the steering position. The Lagoon 40 uses compact dimensions and strong engines to overpower wind drift. The Leopard 42 uses elevation to give the skipper eyes on all 4 corners. The Balance 442 moves the helm to wherever the action is. But they all share one common trait. They were designed with the assumption that nobody is on the bow. Most catamarans are designed with the assumption that someone is standing on the bow with a line, someone is standing on the stern with a fender, and the skipper is steering from the flybridge with a radio coordinating all of it. That's crude thinking. Solo thinking starts with the question, what if nobody else is on this boat? Fourth, the fatigue equation. The original Toughest Bluewater Sailboats video made the point that fatigue is not comfort. Fatigue causes mistakes. Mistakes sink boats. That logic applies double for solo sailors. Because a solo sailor cannot rest while someone else watches. Everything that reduces fatigue extends the solo sailor's decision-making window. A self-tacking jib eliminates 1 physical task per tack. Over a 12-hour coastal passage with 30 tacks, that's 30 fewer trips across the cockpit. Electric winches eliminate grinding. Over a passage with 50 trim adjustments, that's 50 fewer bursts of physical effort.
A stable, well-balanced hull that tracks straight reduces the autopilot's workload, which reduces electrical consumption, which reduces the need to run the engine to charge, which reduces noise, which improves sleep quality during off-watch periods. It's a chain, and every link that removes effort adds endurance. The boats on this list are designed to extend that chain as far as possible. Fifth, the energy independence factor. In 2026, the solo sailor's most important system is not the sail plan, it's the electrical system. Because a solo sailor relies on autopilot more than any other single piece of equipment. Without autopilot, solo sailing is not practical on any catamaran over 30 feet. Autopilot draws power, constant power, 15 to 20 watts per hour in calm conditions, 50 or more in heavy weather. Over a 24-hour passage, that's between 360 and 1,200 watt-hours just for steering. Add navigation instruments, AIS, radar, chart plotter, VHF, and lighting, and the solo sailor needs 2 to 3 kilowatt-hours per day minimum. A generator solves this, but generators require monitoring, refueling, and maintenance, tasks that add to the solo workload. The 2026 solution is large lithium battery banks charged by solar arrays. Models like the Balance 442 and Nautitech 44 Open lead this transition, with integrated high-output energy systems as standard. 1,500 watts of solar or more, 20 kilowatt-hour lithium banks, silent nights at anchor without a generator running, and enough reserve to run the autopilot for 3 days without sunshine. That energy independence is what makes modern solo catamaran sailing viable, not sexy, viable.
Because without reliable, silent, self-sustaining power, the solo sailor is either hand steering, which is exhausting, or running a generator, which is loud and adds maintenance, or drifting, which is dangerous. And finally, the psychological dimension. Solo sailing is a mental game. The boat that gives the solo skipper confidence will be sailed. The boat that makes them nervous will stay in the marina. And a catamaran that stays in the marina is not a catamaran. It's a very expensive apartment with a bad address. The boats on this list are designed to say one thing to the solo sailor standing on the dock looking at their boat: you can do this. So here's the practical way to choose from this list based on your solo mission. If you want the benchmark for solo catamaran engineering, Balance 442 for the Versa helm and centralized sail management. If you want compact dimensions and seamless cockpit flow, Seawind 1170 for visibility, the magic door, and a boat that stays manageable at 39 feet. If you want the sailor's solo catamaran with tactile feedback and centralized trim, Nautitech 44 Open for direct helm feel and every line at your fingertips. If you want responsive handling and low helm docking in the smallest package, XS14 for Dyneema steering, untinted glass, and pure sensation. If you want confidence and accessibility above all else, Leopard 42 for the command center helm and the forgiving learning curve. If you want entry-level simplicity that never overwhelms, Lagoon 40 for the self-tacking rig, compact footprint, and a boat that lets you grow. And if you want elite performance that rewards skill with speed, Outremer 45 for light air mastery, daggerboard precision, and the purest solo sailing experience on a catamaran. That's the real message of solo capability. It's not one feature, it's not one system. It's a chain of design decisions that all assume the same thing. There is one person on this boat, and that one person needs to see everything, reach everything, and control everything from one position. These 7 catamarans are built to make that possible.